You've probably heard it said 1,000 times. It's just a plant. But what if it's not? What if every time you light it, you're lighting more than a joint? You're opening a door? Cannabis has become a symbol of peace, freedom, and even spiritual awakening in today's world. But behind the smoke and the cultural narratives lies a deeper truth, one that has been whispered through ancient lineages and guarded in sacred rituals. This plant is not neutral. It's a portal, a teacher, a test. What if the very thing that's helping you escape is also what's quietly dulling your intuitive gifts? What if your desire for expansion is being hijacked by something that slowly lowers your vibration without you even noticing? This isn't about fear. It's about remembrance. Because when you understand what cannabis truly does to your spiritual field, you begin to ask different questions. Is this opening me to my highest self, or pulling me further from it? Is this temporary clarity worth the energetic residue it leaves behind? The truth is, some doors are meant to be opened, but only with intention, awareness, and reverence. And some doors are better left closed. Let's talk about the spiritual consequences of smoking marijuana. Not to judge, but to remember. There's a deep, ancient memory stored within the human soul. The remembrance that we are not only physical beings, but portals to other dimensions. Since the beginning of time, altered states have been one of humanity's bridges to the unseen. The shamans, the mystics, the prophets, all have used various techniques to shift perception and enter the sacred. But the key was always intention. The key was always alignment. In today's world, we've inherited a diluted version of that truth. We reach for altered states not from a place of reverence, but often from a place of escape. Cannabis, once a sacrament, has become a habit, a coping mechanism, a spiritual shortcut. But when we alter our consciousness without intention, we begin to pay a spiritual cost most people aren't aware of. Cannabis does open a portal. This much is true. It shifts brainwave activity, loosens the attachment to ego, and softens the veil between physical and energetic realms. That's why so many feel more connected, more open, more creative when under its influence. But what's often forgotten is that this opening is not selective. It doesn't just open you to higher frequencies. It opens you to all frequencies. Just as you might access inspiration, you may also become vulnerable to energetic interference, psychic fog, and the absorption of emotions or entities that don't belong to you. Have you ever felt drained, anxious, or off the day after using cannabis, even if the moment itself felt calm? Have you noticed how your ability to hear your intuition dims slightly, or how your dreams become harder to remember, more fragmented? These are not coincidences. They are signs of energetic consequences that ripple beyond the moment of consumption. There is also a deeper pattern at play. The more we rely on an external substance to feel spiritual, calm, or inspired, the more we reinforce the unconscious belief that we are not enough on our own, that our natural state is not sacred enough, that our consciousness must be enhanced to be valuable. But this belief is a trap, and it keeps the soul subtly disconnected from its own power. It becomes harder to access stillness without stimulation, harder to meditate without smoke, harder to hear the divine whisper without the filter. This is the forgotten cost, not just in energy, but in identity. That doesn't mean altered states are inherently wrong. Throughout history, certain plants have been used in ceremony, under the guidance of elders, within sacred containers. But there is a vast difference between entering a sacred state with a guide and prayer, and lighting up out of habit in a bedroom full of distractions and open portals. One invites communion, the other opens you to confusion. The spiritual realm does not play by human rules. It is sensitive to vibration. Every choice you make, especially those that alter your consciousness, either clarifies your field or clouds it, either strengthens your sovereignty or weakens it. The question is not, is cannabis bad? But rather, is this taking me deeper into my soul or pulling me further from it? When you are high, are you more present or more numb? When you smoke, do you feel more connected to source or do you feel like you've momentarily bypassed pain you weren't ready to process? And then there is the body, your sacred vessel. Cannabis may relax the nervous system temporarily, but long-term use can create energetic stagnation in the lungs, the heart space, and the root chakra. It can dull the fire of willpower, scatter mental clarity, and weaken the very focus required to manifest. Many who use it frequently also report an increasing difficulty in feeling truly clear, emotionally, psychically, and spiritually. This conversation is not about shame, it's about awareness. You are allowed to ask hard questions about things that once felt good. You are allowed to shift your relationship to something when you realize its effects are deeper than you thought. You came to this earth to awaken, not to numb. You came to this life to remember your divinity, not to outsource it. So the question becomes, what are you really seeking when you alter your state? Peace, connection, escape, inspiration, and, perhaps most importantly, could all of that already live within you, waiting to be remembered, without anything external at all? Because altered states are powerful, but your natural state, when fully activated, is more powerful than anything you could ever inhale. Let's remember what true clarity feels like, what cannabis really is. Let's talk about its origins and energetic role. To truly understand cannabis, we must step outside of modern culture and enter the lineage of the plant itself. Cannabis is not just a substance, it is a consciousness. It is a being with its own frequency, its own spirit, and its own sacred role in the larger web of life. Long before it was packaged, branded, and recreationally consumed, cannabis was revered as a bridge, a medicine of transition, intuition, and spiritual access. But as with all bridges, how you cross it determines where you arrive. Cannabis, or Cannabis sativa, is one of the most ancient plants known to humankind. Its first documented uses stretch back over 2,500 years to regions like India, China, and Persia, where it was used in ritual, healing, and meditation. In India, for example, cannabis was often associated with Lord Shiva, the deity of destruction and transformation. In this context, cannabis was not an escape, it was an offering, a sacrament used to dissolve the ego and enter communion with the divine. This is important to remember. Cannabis has a long-standing spiritual lineage. It wasn't always seen as a vice, but it also wasn't used casually. Its ingestion was intentional, ceremonial, and embedded within a larger context of discipline and devotion. So what is cannabis energetically? It is a heart-opening, boundary-softening plant ally. It slows the mind, amplifies the senses, and allows for the kind of right brain perception we often lose in the modern world. This can be beautiful. It can foster art, connection, laughter, vulnerability, and access to subtle realms of feeling and thought. But that same openness, when not protected or balanced, can become a spiritual liability. Cannabis has a feminine essence, fluid, flowing, nonlinear. It connects us with yin energy, receptive, intuitive, and dreamy. But without the grounding of the masculine, without structure, clarity, or presence, too much yin can lead to passivity, emotional haze, and spiritual dissociation. It's the difference between being connected to your heart and being lost in your thoughts, between channeling higher guidance and getting stuck in endless loops of imagination. Used with reverence, cannabis can be a door. Used unconsciously, it can become a cage. Energetically, it's important to note that cannabis does not raise your frequency. It expands perception temporarily, but this expansion does not mean elevation. If your internal state is ungrounded, anxious, unresolved, or filled with fear, cannabis may amplify those patterns rather than heal them. The plant does not choose what to open. It simply opens. That's why many people experience increased anxiety, paranoia, or emotional confusion after consuming cannabis, especially in today's hyper-potent strains. We've bred the plant for strength, not balance, for potency, not purity. And when that potent energy interacts with an overstimulated, under-cleansed energy body, the results can be more chaotic than enlightening. So ask yourself, Do you feel more yourself when you use cannabis or less? Do you feel empowered by it or dependent on it to feel spiritual? Because this is where the energetic role of cannabis becomes subtle but crucial. In traditional medicine systems, cannabis was sometimes used to break patterns, to shake loose what had become rigid. But then it was set aside. It was not meant for constant consumption. It was a guide, not a crutch. Spiritually, cannabis can reveal, but it does not integrate. That work is up to you. It can show you the vision, but it cannot walk you there. And here's another layer. The plant has its own karma. Every being on earth carries an energetic imprint, not just humans. And cannabis, after decades of misuse, criminalization, manipulation, and commercialization, now carries a heavy collective shadow. When we consume it, we interact not only with its essence, but with its history. And unless we are clear, cleansed, and intentional, we unconsciously take on some of that karmic weight. It's not just what a substance does. It's also about what it carries. So how do we honor cannabis if we choose to engage with it? With deep respect, with ritual, with discernment, we can cleanse the space, call in protection, state intention, and listen for guidance, not just from our desires, but from our soul. And most importantly, we must be willing to stop when it no longer serves our evolution. That is true respect, knowing when the lesson has been received. Cannabis is not inherently negative, but its energy demands clarity. It invites you to ask, why am I using this? What am I seeking? And is there a deeper way to meet that need from within? Because cannabis, in its highest role, is not here to replace your connection to spirit. It is here to remind you that the connection already lives inside of you. And when you remember that, when you truly feel that, you may realize that you no longer need anything outside of yourself to touch the divine. How marijuana affects the spiritual body. To understand how marijuana truly affects the spiritual body, we have to move beyond the physical and psychological effects and enter the subtle layers of your being, the energetic system, the auric field, and the soul's own frequency. The spiritual body is not seen by the eyes, but it is felt. It is sensed in the clarity of your thoughts, the stability of your emotions, the resonance of your intentions, and the strength of your connection to higher realms. And everything you ingest, especially substances like marijuana, directly interacts with that invisible architecture. Let's begin with this. Marijuana does not only alter your state of mind, it alters your frequency, it shifts your vibration, it changes the way energy flows through you, how your chakras communicate, and how your field interacts with the environment around you. This isn't inherently bad, but it is powerful. And if we do not approach that power consciously, it can create imbalances that we don't even realize are happening until we feel the weight of spiritual disconnection. Marijuana opens the energetic body. That's one of its most well-known spiritual traits. It softens the boundaries between thought and emotion, between physical and etheric, between you and what surrounds you. In ancient traditions, this kind of openness was reserved for intentional practices, ceremonies, rituals, visions, because it was understood that once the spiritual body is opened, it becomes more receptive, not just to inspiration or insight, but to all energies, including those that are ungrounded, dense, or even parasitic. The problem isn't the opening. The problem is unconscious opening. When you open your spiritual body without cleansing, without guidance, without a container of protection or intention, you leave yourself energetically porous. The aura, your natural protective layer, becomes thinner, more permeable, and that can allow in thoughts, moods, and entities that are not your own. You might feel high in one moment, but depleted in the hours or days that follow. You might gain insight in a flash, only to feel emotionally scattered and unmotivated after. That's because your spiritual body is picking up on more than you realize. And the truth is, marijuana doesn't just soften the aura, it lingers within it. It's not like food that digests and disappears. It leaves behind an energetic residue, a kind of spiritual fog that can hang in your field long after the chemical effects have worn off. This fog affects clarity. It affects decision-making. It slows the higher mind and sometimes distorts intuitive messages, blending inner wisdom with the echoes of altered perception. Have you ever felt like your dreams became more vivid after using marijuana, but also more chaotic or symbolic in strange ways? That's your subconscious navigating an open channel without grounding. That's your energetic body trying to make sense of signals without the filters and protections it normally has. This is why some people report feeling more disconnected from their body after prolonged use. They're not imagining it. Marijuana can create a spiritual imbalance where the higher chakras, third eye, crown, become overstimulated, while the lower chakras, root, sacral, become neglected. The result? Insight without integration, awareness without embodiment. You might know something, but you can't live it. You might feel spiritually inclined, but physically unmotivated or emotionally unstable. That's the spiritual body trying to restore balance that keeps being interrupted. And here's something deeper. The spiritual body thrives on presence. It grows through stillness, discipline, breath, devotion. Marijuana by nature dissolves structure. It invites flow, release, surrender, which is beautiful in moments of ritual. But when that dissolution becomes habitual, it erodes the energetic architecture that keeps your soul grounded in this reality. And without grounding, you can't build. You can't embody the wisdom you receive. You can't manifest cleanly or powerfully because your channel is fogged. Ask yourself, do you feel more present after using marijuana or less? Do you feel clear and connected to your inner guidance, or like you're floating between dimensions with no anchor? Because the spiritual body needs both openness and order, both expansion and containment. That is the sacred polarity of spiritual evolution. It's not that marijuana severs your connection to the divine, but it can dilute it. It can scatter your focus, make you dependent on altered states for insight, and keep you in a loop of seeking rather than embodying. And over time, that creates a spiritual gap. You begin to associate elevation with escape rather than integration. You begin to look outside of yourself for the access to something that has always lived within. So if you choose to interact with marijuana, the question is not, is this good or bad? The question is, does this serve my evolution or stall it? Am I expanding into greater truth or avoiding what my soul is asking me to face? Your spiritual body is sacred. It's the bridge between your human experience and your divine origin. Everything you consume either strengthens that bridge or weakens it. Everything you allow into your field either clarifies your frequency or clouds it. And you, only you, have the power to choose what you allow. Because spiritual growth is not about judgment. It's about remembering. And in that remembrance, you may find that the highest state isn't the one that lifts you up. It's the one that brings you home. There is a moment, subtle, almost imperceptible, when something shifts inside you. You feel a little heavier, a little slower. The colors of your inner world begin to dim, and yet you can't quite explain it. The mind seems calm, the body is relaxed, and perhaps even the emotions feel less intense. But that's exactly where the misunderstanding lies. This is not peace, it's disconnection. When you consume cannabis repeatedly or unconsciously, a subtle lowering of frequency occurs, not always in an immediate crash, but like a soft erosion, a slow fading of the spiritual brightness you didn't know was dimming. And because the shift is gradual, it's often mistaken for balance. But emotional dulling is not the same as emotional mastery. Disengagement is not the same as presence, and numbness is never the same as peace. Let's begin with vibration. Your frequency is your unique energetic signature, shaped by your thoughts, your emotions, your spiritual alignment, your intentions, and the purity of your connection to Source. When you are clear, centered, and grounded in your truth, your frequency becomes magnetic. You radiate. People feel you without even knowing why. Life flows toward you because your energy is coherent and in alignment. Now, enter cannabis. As a plant teacher, cannabis can momentarily elevate perception, but that elevation is often misunderstood. It expands certain aspects of the mind while temporarily dulling others. Your sense of time slows, awareness widens, and you may feel a kind of euphoric detachment from pain, from stress, even from yourself. That sounds like healing on the surface, but in the spiritual body, something else may be happening, a decoupling from your emotional center. This is where the frequency drop begins. Cannabis can bypass emotional density. It softens discomfort, filters internal noise, and numbs overstimulation, which can feel like relief, especially for sensitive or empathic souls. But when this numbing is repeated over and over again, it creates an unconscious message in your field. Disconnection is safer than feeling. And once that message settles in, your emotional body begins to withdraw. You may notice it in small ways. You stop crying as often. You stop feeling joy with the same intensity. You stop reacting to life with the fullness you once did. Not because you're more centered, but because you're slightly more disengaged. And the danger is, this disconnection can masquerade as chill. It can look like being above it all. But underneath, it is often a subtle shutdown of the sacred channel that processes and integrates emotion. The truth is, your emotions are energetic messengers. They are the bridge between your soul and your human experience. When you dull them, you don't silence pain, you silence communication. You block the very currents that keep your energy field alive, vibrant, and evolving. Ask yourself, have you become more emotionally available or less? Do you feel more connected to your heart or more distant from it? The spiritual consequence of emotional dulling is that your intuitive clarity begins to dim as well. Intuition doesn't only speak in words or visions, it speaks in feeling. And when the feeling body is muted, your ability to hear soul guidance becomes compromised. You might begin to question your purpose, feel adrift, or lack the motivation to act on inner wisdom. Not because it's gone, but because you're no longer tuned to its frequency. And then there's the body. Your physical vessel is the densest layer of your energy field, but also the foundation. Cannabis, when used excessively or without sacred intention, can unground the body. This ungrounding severs the feedback loop between mind, heart, and flesh. You may begin to feel like you're living slightly outside of yourself, like your thoughts are moving, but your actions are delayed, like your spirit is floating slightly above your life, instead of being fully in it. Disconnection doesn't happen all at once. It happens over time. With every moment you reach for a shortcut to stillness, with every time you mute emotion instead of embracing it, with every instance of choosing ease over integration. This is the great misunderstanding of frequency. People think higher vibration means floating above life, but real frequency work is grounding the divine into life. It is the willingness to feel deeply, engage fully, and walk through discomfort with awareness rather than sedation. Cannabis, when used with intention, respect, and ceremonial awareness, can open doors. But when used to escape, distract, or avoid, it begins to close them, subtly, slowly, and silently. And the cost is rarely dramatic. It's not the loud loss. It's the quiet fading of color, of clarity, of connection. So take a moment to reflect. Do you feel more alive, more attuned, more present in your own sacred vessel? Because anything that lowers your ability to feel is lowering your ability to remember. And you came here to remember who you are, not escape it. You are meant to be fully alive, fully embodied, and fully capable of navigating this reality without numbing your spirit to survive it. Because presence is the gateway to power, and your frequency is your truth, not something to float above, but something to root into. How cannabis opens you to energetic vulnerability. Your energy is your boundary. Before your words, before your physical reactions, before any defense mechanism kicks in, it is your energetic field that speaks first. It's the invisible membrane that tells the world what enters, what stays, and what bounces back. When your energy is clear, grounded, and intact, you become naturally protected. But when your field is porous, even subtly, you become energetically available to things that were never meant to touch you. Cannabis, especially when used unconsciously or frequently, has a way of softening these energetic boundaries. It doesn't just alter perception, it loosens the integrity of your field. And that softness, while it may feel expansive, peaceful, or even divine in the moment, can open subtle gateways, not all of which are benevolent. Let's be clear, cannabis is not evil. It is a plant teacher. But like all spiritual tools, its power depends on intention. And when intention is absent, when the plant is used casually, habitually, or as a means of escape, the field begins to shift, slowly, silently, and often without awareness. Why does this happen? Because cannabis works deeply through the energy body, particularly the crown, third eye, and heart chakras. It can heighten sensitivity, dissolve rigid mental patterns, and soften emotional resistance. But that very softening, when not matched with grounding or spiritual hygiene, can leave the field open, like a door left ajar during a storm, like inviting the world in without checking who's at the door. When your energy becomes that open, it becomes harder to discern what's yours from what's not. You may absorb emotions that don't belong to you. You may begin to carry energetic imprints from people, spaces, or even non-physical presences without realizing it. Your dreams may feel less like subconscious processing and more like astral chaos. You may begin to experience moods or thoughts that don't feel like your own. And if you are sensitive or empathic by nature, this porousness can be especially overwhelming. There is also the question of entities, energetic attachments that thrive in lowered frequency and unconscious access points. While this may sound esoteric, it is not uncommon in many spiritual traditions to acknowledge that certain states of altered consciousness, especially when not rooted in sacred practice, can make a person more vulnerable to energetic interference. This doesn't mean fear, it means awareness. And awareness is the beginning of protection. Because what cannabis does is amplify whatever is already present in your field. If you are grounded, centered, and protected, it may deepen insight or expand perception. But if you are fragmented, uncentered, emotionally raw, or spiritually unprotected, it can widen the cracks, allowing in what would otherwise remain outside your field. Have you ever noticed that after using cannabis, you feel more anxious in crowded places, more emotionally fragile in social situations, more susceptible to the moods of others, even hours or days after use? That's not just hypersensitivity. That's a temporarily weakened energy field. Your shield is thinner, your grounding cord less anchored, your sovereignty just slightly less intact. And in this softened state, your ability to say no energetically, to shield, to block, to transmute, is diminished. Your soul is still there. Your light is never lost. But your filters are down. And this is what opens the door to vulnerability. Not only to energy from others, but also to self-doubt, confusion, and internal fragmentation. There's also a deeper layer, the disconnect from the lower chakras. Cannabis tends to lift energy upward, toward the mind, the etheric, the visionary realms. But if not balanced, this upward pull can result in disconnection from your root, your sacral, your solar plexus. And these are the very centers responsible for grounding your spirit in the body, anchoring purpose, and maintaining energetic sovereignty. When the lower chakras are bypassed, even temporarily, you might feel like you're floating. This can feel magical at first, but over time, it becomes destabilizing because you can't build anything lasting without roots. You can't channel divine inspiration without an earthly vessel strong enough to hold it. And cannabis, when misused, can pull you out of your body just enough to make you vulnerable, not only to outside energies, but to losing your connection with your own grounded truth. So what does true spiritual safety look like? It's not about never entering altered states. It's about entering them consciously, with intention, with grounding, with spiritual hygiene, with discernment, and most importantly, with the awareness that your energy is not something to be left unattended, especially when you are opening doors that go beyond the five senses. Because you are not just a body navigating the world, you are a luminous being in constant energetic dialogue with seen and unseen realms. Every substance you ingest, every frequency you embody, and every state of consciousness you choose affects the clarity and safety of that dialogue. So pause and reflect. When you use cannabis, do you feel stronger in your field or more exposed? Do you return to your center or drift further from it? You are sacred technology. Your energy field is the interface between your soul and the cosmos. Guard it wisely, because the more you respect your boundaries, the more the universe respects your light. And in that awareness, there is no fear, only power. Not everything we feel is ours. Not every thought, emotion, or impulse arises from within our own soul. And one of the deepest, often unspoken truths on the spiritual path is this: when your energetic field is open and unguarded, you become perceptible not only to people and environments, but to unseen energies as well. These are not fairy tales or abstract metaphors. Nearly every ancient spiritual tradition, from indigenous shamanism to mystical Christianity, from the Vedic scriptures to African animism, has warned of unseen forces, entities, spirits, energies that operate beyond the visible, yet very much interact with our world. They don't always appear as something dark or threatening. In fact, many of them are subtle. They slip in through resonance, emotional openings, and altered states of consciousness. And one of the most common gateways is the use of substances that lower or distort the energetic field, like cannabis, when used without consciousness. The word entity may evoke fear, but the truth is more nuanced. Entities are not always malevolent. Some are just opportunistic. They seek energy to feed on, and they're drawn to vibration. When your field is leaking energy, when your aura is porous, your thoughts unfocused, your emotions heightened or numbed, your frequency becomes easier to hook into. And for entities that thrive on chaos, fear, confusion, or even excessive euphoria without grounding, that is an invitation. Cannabis alters perception. It softens the walls of the psyche. It can blur the line between your subconscious and the collective field. And in this blurring, your filters, the energetic mechanisms that normally protect you from unwanted influences, can weaken. You may not even notice it. It might feel like a random emotional crash after smoking, a heavy presence in your room, a nightmare that leaves a residue long after you wake up, or a persistent thought pattern that feels foreign, like it doesn't belong to your natural way of thinking. Have you ever had the experience of smoking and then feeling off for days? Like something stuck to you? Like you opened a door but didn't fully close it? That's not coincidence. That's frequency. Entities don't need dramatic rituals or deliberate invocation to enter your space. They follow resonance. They track vibration. And cannabis, when used frequently, especially in emotionally unstable or spiritually unprotected states, can create a vibrational signature that certain entities are attuned to. This is especially true if you use it while feeling anxious, lonely, angry, or disconnected from your body. These emotional states act like magnets, drawing in what already vibrates at a similar frequency. It's important to know, this is not about demonizing the plant. Cannabis has been used in sacred ritual, deep healing, and spiritual vision across many cultures. But the context matters. In shamanic practices, cannabis and other plant medicines are traditionally used within highly protected ceremonial spaces, often guided by elders or shamans who understand how to safeguard the energetic environment. Boundaries are set, intention is clear, protection is active, and when the veil is opened, it is done with respect and with responsibility. But in modern use, especially recreationally or habitually, those safeguards are rarely present. The plant is consumed casually, often in private, without grounding, cleansing, or preparation. The user enters an altered state, sometimes while scrolling a phone, listening to music, or lying in bed, and the energy field begins to shift. Layers thin, awareness blurs, and the subtle realm becomes more accessible, not only to your perception, but also to you as a vessel. This is where spiritual hygiene becomes crucial. When you open yourself, are you protected? Are you grounded? Are you clear in your intention? Or are you escaping? Because entities are not inherently evil, but they are real. and their presence can impact your thoughts, your mood, your clarity, even your sense of identity. They may attach through unhealed trauma, unconscious behavior, or energetic contracts you didn't know you were making. And cannabis, when used without awareness, can become the medium through which these contracts are initiated. So what can you do? Start with discernment. Ask yourself, does this enhance my clarity or cloud it? Do I feel more connected to my truth or more disconnected from it? Learn to read the subtle. Pay attention to how your body feels after using cannabis. Notice your dreams, your emotions, the thoughts that linger. Learn to cleanse your energy field, not just with sage or crystals, but with presence, with conscious breath, with intention, with daily practices that reinforce your sovereignty. And above all, remember, you have authority in your own field. No entity, no frequency, no energetic imprint has power over you unless it is granted access, consciously or unconsciously. You are not at the mercy of the unseen. You are the steward of your inner temple. This isn't about fear. It's about mastery. It's about choosing not just what you let into your body, but what you let into your field. Because once you understand how energy works, you stop playing with fire and start tending sacred flame. And you are that flame. Guard it well. You were born to channel light, not escape it. There is a deep and sacred truth that runs through the core of all of us. You were not born to escape your life, your feelings, or your circumstances. You were born to channel light. You were born to become a vessel for the divine energy that flows through this universe. And yet, in moments of pain, confusion, or uncertainty, many of us turn to substances, including alcohol, marijuana, or even other forms of escapism, to numb, to forget, or to disconnect from the very light that is meant to guide us. The question is, why do we do this? Why do we seek to escape the very essence of who we are and the divine presence that dwells within us? The answer lies in the patterns we've inherited, the societal conditioning that teaches us to avoid discomfort, and the fear that arises when we encounter the unknown within ourselves. But here's the truth. You are a channel for light. And while it may seem easier in the moment to turn away from your light and seek refuge in temporary distractions, the consequences are far deeper than what is often realized. When you turn away from your light, you are not only denying your divine purpose, but you are also creating a block in the flow of energy that is meant to nourish your soul and guide you through life's challenges. Light is not just something that is abstract or intangible. It is your natural state of being. It is the energy of creation itself. When you align with your light, you align with the highest frequency, the frequency that attracts abundance, clarity, healing, and deep, lasting joy. Your light is the source of your power, your creativity, your intuition, and your connection to the universe. But to channel this light fully, you must be willing to face the shadow, the discomfort, and the unknown parts of yourself. When we turn to substances, we often do so to escape discomfort. We numb the feelings of anxiety, fear, or sadness, and for a time, we may feel relief. But this relief is temporary. The light within us does not disappear just because we choose to ignore it. Instead, when we numb ourselves, we weaken our connection to that light. The more we escape, the more we lose touch with our true essence, and the more difficult it becomes to channel that light into the world. Imagine you are holding a beautiful, radiant lamp in your hands. This lamp represents the divine light that resides within you. Now imagine covering the lamp with layers of cloth or placing it in a dark corner of your home. The light is still there, but it is no longer able to shine brightly. It is obscured. This is what happens when we choose to escape, to hide from our emotions, or to disconnect from our own truth. We dim our light, and in doing so, we stop sharing our true essence with the world. The process of channeling light is not about running away from your emotions or your reality. It is about facing them head-on. It is about learning to move through life with grace, presence, and courage, knowing that every challenge, every moment of discomfort, is an opportunity for growth and expansion. Your light is most powerful when it is fully present, when it is shining through the cracks and the scars, when it is able to illuminate the darkest corners of your soul and the world around you. There is nothing to escape, because there is nowhere you need to hide. The divine is already within you, already present, already flowing. But to access this power, to truly channel it into the world, you must be willing to face everything that stands between you and your highest potential. This means looking at your fears, your wounds, and your limiting beliefs, and letting them go. It means understanding that every part of you, even the parts you wish to hide, are part of the divine blueprint. True freedom comes not from avoiding the hard parts of life, but from embracing them. The more you run, the further you get from your true self. The more you face the discomfort, the more your light will expand, until it becomes impossible to ignore. Your purpose in this life is not to escape, it is to become. It is to allow your light to shine, to touch others, to heal, and to transform the world around you. When you understand this, the need for external substances fades away. The need to escape or numb your reality becomes obsolete, because you realize that the light you are seeking is already within you, waiting to be activated. You are the divine channel, and all you need to do is open yourself to it. But this is not a process of perfection. It is a journey of acceptance, of coming back to yourself time and time again. It's about being present with whatever arises, knowing that you have the power to move through it. It's about letting go of the need to control and trusting that your light will guide you through the darkness. You were born to channel light. You were born to become the beacon for others. And when you begin to walk this path, when you begin to trust in your own divine power, you will see that the light was never really gone. It has always been there, waiting for you to remember it. So, ask yourself, what am I running from? What part of me am I hiding? And instead of turning away, choose to step into it. Allow your light to shine brighter than ever before. Because when you channel your light, you not only heal yourself, but you become a force of transformation in the world. You become the beacon of hope, the channel of divine energy, the light that this world so desperately needs. The truth is simple. You were born to channel light, not escape it. And when you embrace that truth, everything changes.